Hello and happy Halloween. It is beautiful here. This will come out the week before Halloween. So I want to wish all of you a happy harvest or a happy fall or a happy Halloween. Uh, Whatever you celebrate, get out, enjoy the beautiful fall weather. It is gorgeous here in South Alabama, and I have my Goddess of the Autumn crown on because today we are going to be talking about the quintessential X Files episode for the Halloween season, Chinga. Um, so I know a lot of y'all like Bad Blood, and that's valid. But I will take Chinga over Bad Blood any day of the week. Um, Chinga is my favorite episode in season 5, and it always has been. Gee, I wonder why. It's a Scully centric episode. Scully has the spotlight, which is always a treat when Scully runs off away from Mulder and kicks ass and solves cases by herself. I always love that. She does that in Tithonus and a lot of other episodes. Always love it. I'm also struggling with laryngitis. This is the chest cold from hell, but I'm finally on the mend, and I'm also celebrating that. So before our Halloween festivities kick off, let's talk about Chinga. I have very fond memories of this episode. So Chinga is dark. It's funny. It's introspective. It has moments of levity, and it will have moments that make you question the universe. And that's everything I wanted in an X-Files episode. Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, War of the Copperfodges, Jose Chung's From Outer Space, and Chinga. Those are the 4 episodes I see in that way. Like, they're kind of funny, but they're also pretty dark and will make you think about life and society and the universe. So, Chinga is also all of the things I want in a Stephen King story. And wouldn't you know it, this is written by Stephen King. Co-written by Chris Carter, but we're gonna pretend we don't see that. So, my oldest brother, was a huge Stephen King head. He read all the books. He knew about all of the Stephen King lore. And of course, being a little sister, I wanted to read everything he read. And so I read as many Stephen King books as I could get my hands on. I was like 8 to 13 years old at that time. So, quick thing about my upbringing. My parents and my dad especially were like strict Pentecostal conservative Christians. And my dad was like super careful monitoring what we watched, my brothers and I. He wouldn't allow us to watch the X-Files. I had to sneak around to my best friend's house to watch that. But he didn't care what we read. I don't know why. So we read all the good stuff. All the R-rated to NC-17 rated stuff. He didn't care. And Stephen King was one of them. Learned a lot reading Stephen King. This episode is co-written by Stephen King. One of the jokes that I absolutely love is Stephen King, probably the most famous horror genre writer. When he wrote an episode of The X-Files, he chose Scully to represent it. And I absolutely love that. He's like, Mulder can hang back. I don't need him. So that's pretty funny. I love that. I always knew I liked that guy for some reason. So, have wonderful memories of watching this episode with my 2 older brothers and my older cousins and my best friend Jenny, who introduced me to the X-Files. It's my favorite episode of season 5, so let's get into it. I have a whole lot to say. It's one of those episodes you can sink your teeth into. It's really good. I watched this for the first time when I was 13. My best friend Jenny threw a big premiere party at her house. My older cousins and my older brothers were there because we had to watch this episode written by Stephen King because we were big Stephen King fans too. I remember really loving it. I thought it was funny. It had an evil talking doll on it. I was so charmed. And it's one of those episodes where you watch it again when you're 38 and you're like, oh shit, this is fucked up. So we'll get into that. The relationship between the mom and the daughter is beyond messed up. Holy shit. Good Lord. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, Chinga is about Scully, and she wants to go on a vacation, and she does, and she ends up in a Stephen King novel. Stephen King novels, if you've never read them before, I'm so sorry. We're gonna get through this. I'm very raspy. Again, my drink of choice, a Coca-Cola Classic with Jack Daniel's Fireball Whiskey. Cheers. Happy harvest. And I have my little Halloween cat right here. Hello, bestie. She's not a black cat, but she's awesome. So, you cannot drink my whiskey. No, thank you. And if you've never read a Stephen King novel before, his novels are kind of like Quentin Tarantino movies. All of his books have very specific things in them. And it's fun to watch. Chinga, my cat, just jumped and landed on her face. It was hilarious. I wish I could have got that on video. Here's my other Halloween cat. I don't know if you can see her. No, she's hiding. Anyway, it's fun to watch Chinga and play Stephen King bingo. Like, you can fill in all the slots of, like, things that always show up in Stephen King stories. So, I like to call this episode Scully and the Stephen King Vacation Package. Because Scully goes on vacation. Homegirl just wants a vacation. She just wants to get away for a little bit. And she ends up in a Stephen King novel. Of course she does. Scully will never have nice things. And neither will we. So, you see Scully, and she is driving a blue convertible, and she gets out of her car to fill it up at the gas station. This is a screenshot. A lot of people make it into a GIF for Tumblr, Twitter. She's in this tight-fitted t-shirt. It says, Maine, the way life should be. A lot of people say, vacation wife, step on me. It's exactly how I feel. When I was 13 watching this, at 38 watching it, still feel the same way. I want Dana Scully to step on me in her vacation shirt and tight blue jeans. So she gets out of the car, and one of the jokes is, has Scully ever been on a vacation before? You really see Scully's autism coming out here, where she's like, oh, this is what people are supposed to do on vacation. They're supposed to get a convertible and wear this very specific t-shirt, which is exactly what I would think and do in that situation. So good representation there. Her cell phone's going off. She can't find it. It's in her suitcase. I love how she has to dig through her suitcase. And guess who it is? Mulder. Mulder has the separation anxiety of a dog in this episode. Okay, I'm going to rate Mulder in this episode. I'm going to say he's a 2. He's still an asshole because Mulder's never going to not be an asshole. But he's pretty adorable in this one. First of all, he can't be without Scully for 5 minutes, which makes the ending scene where he tells her, like, oh, I got so much done without you meddling. I'm like, bitch, you didn't do anything but masturbate and stare wistfully at Scully's photo. What the fuck are you talking about, man? He's calling her every 5 minutes. It's representative of, it's reminiscent of War of the Copper Fodges, where he was calling Scully. But in War of the Copper Fodges, he was calling her, because he cannot live without her. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Scully seems to function fine without him. She did. There's my Halloween cat chasing a lizard. So, in England, white cats are considered spooky and supernatural, so I really love that. Black cats in England are also considered good luck, and I really love that, because I love black cats. I wish I could show you my black cats, but they live at Mom's house. So, she answers the phone, and he's like, Scully, and she's like, Mulder. Okay, another one of the jokes about this episode is Scully takes a mental health day from Mulder, which is very understandable. She needs that. Okay, Mulder is exhausting. Scully is babysitting this man-child 24/7. She needs a mental health break. She's like, hey, I was going to get away from you for a little bit. And he says, making excuses just to talk to her. And he says, did you rent a convertible? Because you could get decapitated. She hangs up on him. In War of the Copper Fodges and in 1,000 other episodes, Mulder is always hanging up on Scully mid-call and leaving her not knowing if he's alive or not. And it's really good to see her give him some payback. I like that a lot. It's good for Mulder to get a taste of his own asshole medicine for a little bit. She comes to a grocery store and she sees these people stumbling out. Their eyes are bloodied. They've tried to scratch their eyes out. And Scully can't get away from work. And that's one of the running gags in this episode. I do like how when she gets out of her convertible, she immediately puts her black blazer on. Like, she's going into Agent Scully mode. Vacation Scully and Agent Scully. There are two wolves inside of Scully. Vacation Scully and Agent Scully in this episode. She goes inside and this manager walks up to her and says, who are you? And that cracks me up. This is a tourist spot, this town in Maine. Why would he say that to someone walking in the grocery store? Who are you? Is that how you greet everyone who comes into your grocery store? So, I am so sorry, excuse me. This cold's got me. So, he's like, I think Dave the Butcher's dead. I love how everyone just calls him Dave the Butcher. I think he's listed in their credits as Dave the Butcher. If you've ever watched the movie The Happening with, I can't think of the man's name. I'll think of it at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. Why am I thinking Martin Sheen? I know it's not Martin Sheen. Mark Wahlberg, that's it. Martin Sheen, what the hell? This isn't The West Wing. So, the Scully goes back there. Dave the Butcher's dead. He stabbed himself through the eye with a meat cleaver. Which makes me wonder, there's lots of other things in this grocery store that people could kill themselves with, and they didn't. They just tried to, scratch their eyes out, which, The Happening, I know a lot of people crap on The Happening. They think it's a terrible movie, and I kind of like it, so that's my Halloween confession. I kind of like the movie The Happening with Mark Wahlberg. Hello. Hello, bestie. Hello. Hello, bestie. Hello. So Scully goes back there. Dave the Butcher's dead. And then we meet Jack. Jack is the police chief of this town. He is played by the actor who played the police chief in, the detective in Jose Chung's From Outer Space, the one who's always saying blankety blank. Um, but the guy who plays the actor does Jack's character so well, I just never realized that. I love Jack. We'll talk about him in a minute. He's a great character and he's fascinating. I'm really sad we never saw him come back. He reminds me a lot of the police chief in the Stephen King book, Needful Things. That's kind of a deep cut. A lot of people don't know about that Stephen King book. It's not It or The Stand or what have you, but I really love it. So, Jack and Scully are talking, and Scully calls Mulder this time, and Mulder is sitting in his and Scully's FBI office at FBI headquarters at the J. Edgar Hoover building, watching pornography with the sound turned way up. His shirt is untucked and his pants are down. And just, yeah, he's doing that. I put a tweet out saying I was rewatching Chinga, and I put out this tweet saying that, and then I put a gif of Michael Che from the Weekend Update, and he's saying, well, that's great to hear, which is exactly how I feel about Mulder's pornography habits in this episode. He tells Scully he's watching The World's Deadliest Swarms, but he's very clearly watching pornography, and then he tells her that, and she hears it, and then he turns it down like he's ashamed of it, and I'm like, why didn't you do that to begin with, dude? Why did you let her hear that and know that you're wanking it at your desk in the office you share with her? That's fucked up, Mulder. And then you see him get up and go to the TV, and you see a guy getting swarmed by bees, but he turned the pornography to that, so you be the judge. Mulder, best FBI agent, right? Good God, why isn't he fired again? So, ooh, that Coke's spicy. Hey, get away. Hornet. So, she says, hey, the people in this town are, trying to, hurt themselves. And, Mulder's like, hey, have you heard of St. Vitus's disease, the dancing, sickness where people, drop from dancing? Which brings up an interesting point. So when Scully calls Mulder and Mulder calls Scully in this episode, he is giving her very explanations rooted in science and reason. It reminds me very much of him in the episode 3 when Scully wasn't around. I mean, she was presumed missing or dead. And he was giving out these very scientific reasons. So, we got a hand cramp again, kids. Do you like my crown? My daughter made it for me. She's going to make me one for Halloween because I'm going to go as Poison Ivy. She's going to go as Harley Quinn. My daughter and I always try to go as pairs, which is really sweet. So, excuse me. This is interesting. Mulder does this a lot when Scully is away. And she does it a lot when he's away from her. But I think she does it for a different reason than the one he does. Mulder has a Scully-shaped void in his heart. And he must fill it somehow. I really think Mulder could not survive without Scully. But Scully, it has been shown, can survive without Mulder. She did it for 2 goddamn seasons plus change. After they broke up after I Want to Believe. Scully feels sad, but she copes. Mulder cannot survive without her. He cannot survive 5 minutes without her, as this episode shows. So he has to fall back into this very Scully-like behavior. Another thing I think is Like, Mulder is of a personality that he has a very rigid worldview. And I talked about this in my review of War of the Copper Fudges. Like, Mulder has a religion. It's about Bigfoot and aliens and Mothmen and lake monsters. But it's a religion. It's very rigid. And if anything challenges that, Mulder gets scared. He's terrified. This is why Mulder struggles with spirituality. Anyone displaying spirituality, like Melissa Scully or Reyes, this is why he immediately dismisses them. And this is why he gaslights Scully when she's delving into her own spirituality, which is an asshole move and just kind of shows what a big fucking hypocrite Mulder is. And I think it also extends to his and Scully's positions in their relationship. If he sees her going towards the believer role, which I'll talk about in a little bit, he gets terrified. That is challenging his worldview, and he cannot have it. And he'll do anything to, quote, put it right again in his very small worldview. One thing that's always surprised me about Mulder is he's always tagged as the true believer of the pair, and he's not. He has a religion. It's very rigid, and he will not look past that. He's scared to look past that. And like I said in my review of War of the Copper Fudges, like, that's very relatable. I rag on Mulder a lot, but that's relatable. I mean, we're scared of the unknown. We want to put everything in boxes. We'll talk about Scully, how she says she's afraid to believe, but you see as the series progresses, she is not afraid to look. And Mulder is. And Mulder's still afraid. He's still afraid to look beyond his little worldview of that. And that's relatable. I mean, some people are strong enough to do it, like Scully, and some can't, like Mulder. And I understand that. So, she hangs up on Mulder again, which is great. I love every time Scully hangs up on Mulder in this episode, I have an orgasm. Things in the X-Files that give me orgasms. I love Jack. He's like, hey, do you think your partner can help us out? And she's like, no. and Mulder really doesn't. He doesn't help her out at all. In War of the Copper Fudges, Scully is very much helping Mulder out. Mulder doesn't help Scully out at all in this episode. He just annoys her. But then he's trying to be a good boy. And Mulder's not as much of an asshole in this episode. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. So Scully talks to Jack. And when I was 13, I shipped Scully and Jack so hard. And I still do. Jack is awesome. He is fascinating. And he's a lot like Scully. So when Scully starts, like, talking about these theories she has about, this could be outside of the realm of possibility. She's throwing out theories like witchcraft and evil dolls. I always, when I first watched this, I expected Jack to, like, say, you're fucking crazy, and he doesn't, which I love. Jack is a lot like Scully in that he wants to be rooted in reason and logic. And as someone in his field, like someone in hers, as an agent, as a scientist, he's a police chief, he's law enforcement, he has to be. But at heart, he's a true believer, and he wants to fall back on that gut instinct of wanting to look beyond the realm of possibility. And that's cool. I love them. I always wish Jack had come back. I always wish him and Scully had dated. They are just good together. I love them. So Scully has a thing for men named Jack. And Mulder's a little jelly of Jack. You can tell when he's calling, he's gazing wistfully at the phone. He's like, oh, it's Scully with another man. Getting some Tithonus vibes here. So, and that's good. Yeah. She needs to keep Mulder on his toes. He always takes Scully for granted. It's good for him to see, like, oh, I better start appreciating this woman. You know, she's literally the best thing that's ever happened to you, Mulder. So, and the best thing that ever will. So, you go, and Scully's looking at the footage from the grocery store. There is a woman we saw in the cold open with her little girl named Polly. Take a drink or fill in your square of Stephen King bingo. In almost every Stephen King story, there is a weird girl named Polly, and there is a young woman named Lissy. Stephen King's stories have very specific things in every one of them. So, they also have ominous wet sheets. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, Scully's like, these are the only people unaffected. And I love the look that goes between the police chief and one of his officers, Buddy, who's an asshole. We'll meet him in a minute. And that's really good. And Scully, you can tell she's sus. She's like, I'm an outsider here, and I know something's going down. That's cool to see. You see it in Home. You see it in Roadrunners, where Mulder or Scully come into this small town, and, like, they're outsiders, and there's some dirty secrets. And we love that, don't we? So, Jack chases her down. I love how Scully is constantly saying, but I'm on vacation. It's the new Scully saying, I'm fine, when she's absolutely not. Is Scully saying, I'm on vacation. Like, if she says it enough, will it come true? It won't. So, we see Melissa Turner, because this show loves killing and torturing and traumatizing all women, pretty much. But especially women named Melissa for some reason. Lissy Turner and her little girl, Polly. And Polly has a dolly named Chinga, and Chinga is a scary motherfucker. Before I go any further, I want to say that this episode is heavily inspired by the Twilight Zone episode with kind of this same... Ooh, there's a mosquito. Get off. Go away. Don't you know it's cold? You shouldn't be here anymore. This Twilight Zone episode with kind of the same plot about an evil doll that kills people. But the doll doesn't kill people. It is the people behind the doll. The doll's channeling that to murder people. So we see Polly, and Lissy's on the phone with the cop Buddy, one of the officers who the police chief was talking to. And he's like, hey, you need to get out of here. Shit's about to go down. Dave the butcher died. Dave had an unrequited thing for Lissy. And poor Lissy. Holy shit. Her life is terrible. We'll talk about her life in a minute. And you see the Polly's doll behind the ominous Stephen King wet sheets in her backyard. And holy shit, it's fucking scary. So, Lissy goes to Dairy Queen. And I'm going to tell you something. If you grow up in a small town with a Dairy Queen, nothing good happens there, all right? Or a Waffle House. If you're from the South, Dairy Queen or a Waffle House, if small town shit goes down, it's going to be there, okay? Lissy's there. Polly is eating a sundae. She goes up to the lady behind the counter. And she's like, I want more cherries. And the woman is just a shit to the little girl. She's like, I can't just give them away. I'm like, woman, do you see that evil doll? You're about to die. Okay, so when the doll Chinga opens her eyes, it could be really silly. They could play it as like really silly, but props to the props department. When the doll opens her eyes, they move a little bit to the side, and it's fucking scary. So, the doll opens her eyes. She says, "Let's have fun," which is her catchphrase. And I want to play. She says that I want to play. Who voices the doll? Excellent voice acting, just A plus plus. So scary. And this, kids, is why when you are in a kitchen setting preparing food, you need to put up your hair in a hairnet or up away from what you are doing, because this bitch gets her long ass hair caught in the this soft serve machine. And that lived in my nightmares for about 2 months after watching this episode. For someone growing up with very long hair, that was definitely a trigger for me. Hey, look, it's Will. Hey, Will. We love you, handsome. He's the best. So, the lady gets her hair caught in the ice cream saucer machine, and it's terrible. So, Lizzie grabs her daughter up and starts to run, and I'm like, that's kind of giving away the game, aren't you? Like, no one's going to prove that this little girl is killing people through her doll, which is absolutely what she's doing. Like, the doll is evil, but the doll is channeling the child's resentment, which is interesting. So, Polly, we are led to believe, is killing people through her doll. In the Twilight Zone episode, it was the same thing. The little girl's abusive stepfather, the doll killed him, which is really interesting. That's a cool trope when a child feels threatened, like they don't have anyone to turn to and they cannot protect themselves, like they have a supernatural thing to do it for them, which I think like taps into a fear all children feel, that they are not in control of their own lives. This is very much what Polly's doing. She's feeling threatened, and she's lashing out through this talisman she has. Oh, excuse me. So sorry. So, Polly, Lucy grabs her kid. She starts to run away. And, Buddy, says, hey, go to this cabin in the woods. You'll be safe there. And people start asking around. Again, how are they going to prove this? Which we'll get to in a minute. So then, you see Scully, and she's taking a bubble bath. And look, we all rewound this scene. Okay. We all rewound it on whatever streaming platform you're using, or in my case, the DVDs, to see Jillian in that bathtub. Especially where she, the phone's ringing, you know it's Mulder calling to pester her, and she, lifts her leg up out of the bathtub, holy shit, and shuts the door, and that's fucking hot. So then, she gets out of the tub, she's had breakfast in bed, and I said on Twitter this week, this is the last time we will see Scully get even a few hours of relaxation to herself throughout the entire series. So, you see the caller ID going off on the phone, and it's next to a book called Affirmations for the Woman Who Does Too Much, and I'm like, holy shit, ain't that the truth? That's Scully's character in a nutshell right there. Well done, Stephen King. So she's like, oh, I don't have time for this motherfucker. So she opens the windows, and oh no, another man demanding of her time. Jack is standing out there. And let's be real, Jack's the better option between him and Mulder. So they go and see Polly's old daycare teacher, Jane. And Jane is a bitch, okay? Like, this woman is terrible. First of all, she won't let Scully in the house. Fucking rude. She slut shames Melissa. She's just a terrible person. She calls Melissa a witch, and among other things, bad words. And she says, we need to get together and do what our forefathers did. Just kill an innocent woman. And her kid, I'm assuming, Jane's a terrible person. So, Jane slams the door in their face. Fuck Jane. And I don't feel sorry for her when she dies. But she does have a very cute accent. In the next scene, when she's walking into the old daycare, which is closed down, she says, hello, hello, which is a very cute accent. She also is wearing the glasses I think every woman wore during the late 80s, early 90s, the huge wire glasses, the thick wire glasses. So the message of this episode is, like, even in our contemporary culture, this was made in 1998, like, this is very much like the Salem witch trials of, like, people getting together and blaming mishaps that just occurred that shouldn't be blamed on anyone on these innocent women. Jack says it, people say Lissy Turner's a witch. He has an interesting line. He says, I always thought it was because she was pretty and single, threatening, which says a fucking lot. Best line in this episode of, like, society, like, how, like, women are still, like, the scapegoats. Women are dragged for things that men do. There was a great tweet several years ago I read, and this person's, like, saying, we say women have daddy issues because their fathers couldn't be bothered to raise them, and we drag single moms. Hello, baby. Life isn't a photo shoot, Elsa. But she says, to me it is. Precious angel. So, and then we drag single moms for being the ones who stay. And it's like our society still blames women for problems created by the patriarchy. Like, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. Like, if a woman chooses to focus on her career, she's cold and frigid. If a woman chooses to be a mother and dedicate her life to that, like, she's stupid and she can't be, like, people blame her for, like, not having a career. And it's like, well, what do you want us to do? And these are things men will never, ever be bothered by. It's just like deadbeat dads. Like, they get off scot-free. Like, if a man wants to make a baby with a woman, he can walk off, and the woman's stuck with the child. And, like, it's still happening in our society. We're still, like, we like to say, like, we have evolved and we're more compassionate. But are we? Like, we still find scapegoats for problems in our society that are caused by the patriarchy or caused by outside influences that's under no one's control. Look around. This is America, as the song says. Let's blame what is the minority we're going to blame today? What's the marginalized person we're going to blame today? Yesterday it was, like this minority community, and today it's like the LGBTQ plus community. Like, yeah, it's like you can't win, which I think is the message of this episode. But then the writers kind of shoot themselves in the foot. So Lizzie has precognitive powers too, and she sees the people who are about to be killed by her daughter through this evil doll, and which is pretty cool. Also, has anyone noticed the doll looks just like her? Which is maybe another podcast for another day, another vlog for another day. Like, my daughter wants to dress up as our whole family be evil dolls in media. She wants to be Chucky. She wants me to be the evil doll from Chinga. So, Jack takes Scully out for some lobster, and the cutest thing in this episode, and probably the whole series, Scully's afraid of lobsters. You see this like really geeky and human side of Scully come out in like very unexpected places. And her fear of lobsters is one of them. It's just like the most random thing that makes her so relatable. Like, of course she is. Lobsters are scary. Like, this woman will draw down on mutants, and she's like, I'm not doing this giant crustacean, man. I don't do that. So, Jack's digging into that lobster. It looks great. Makes me want to go to Captain Jack's. Captain Jack's is this seafood buffet at the Emerald Coast of Florida, which is about 3 hours from our home. Excellent. If you're ever there, it's pretty expensive, but it's wonderful. Never-ending crab legs. So good. When we go there, you'll see the planes like flying back and forth along the white sand beaches, and it has like that sign, Captain Jack's, which is hilarious. A family buffet is named Captain Jack's, which is the pseudonym for cocaine, in case you don't know. So, Jack like says, Scully's like, what do you know about Lizzie Turner? And she's like, well, her husband died. He was impaled by a grappling hook. Love Jack. He delivers his lines like he's the most happy-go-lucky person. He cannot be bothered by these horrific things. He's like, just another day in Stephen King, Maine. Love it. So, Jack is like, hey, lady, you signed up for the Stephen King vacation package. And damn it, you're going to get the Stephen King vacation package. So, they go to the boat called the Working Girl, her. The names in this episode are hilarious. The daycare is called Wee Laddies and Lassies Daycare. I'm like, who is writing this? That's hilarious. Anyway, so they see the old man who was with Lizzie Turner's husband the night he died, and you get one thing the X-Files loves to do is have a callback to the movie Jaws. They do it so much. They do it in Dudcomb, the ghost ship one. They do it in Triangle. Very, very Quint from Jaws. So he tells them the story about the night Mr. Turner died, and he pulled this creepy ass doll out of the ocean on a lobster trap, and he's like, hey, look what Davy Jones got for my little Polly. And the old man's like, please throw that back in the ocean. Which brings up a whole thing. Who is pulling a scary ass doll out of the ocean and just giving it to their kids? Seems like a great idea. Okay. So, The next scene, you see the doll's shadow, and you hear "I want to play," and Mr. Turner sticks a grappling hook through his skull, and so this old man is telling Scully, he's like, "Yeah, people blame the widow for this," and that's just, and he's like saying, "Oh, he was wild for her. He did all this thing to like build a house for her, and then she killed him." Like, again, you see these people like blaming Melissa Turner for these things when Melissa Turner is absolutely innocent until the very end, and I still think she's not completely to blame for what she does. So this is going to be a long video. So then you see Jane at the daycare. She hears the hokey pokey playing. Let's talk about the hokey pokey. When a song tells me how to move, I do not trust it. This is why I hate square dancing. The hokey pokey is an creepy song, and I don't like it. And this episode absolutely points that out. So Jane goes to turn the record off, and she hears the doll say, "I want to play," but his voice is distorted, and it's as scary as hell. And then you see great cinematography. She turns, she has the broken record in her hand, and you see the doll's silhouette. And you kind of get the feeling the doll is life-size, which is really scary. And you kind of get that feeling like when you see its shadow in the sheets and on the fishing boat. The fact that you don't really see it is scarier than if you did. If you did see it, it would just be silly. It's distorted and it's terrifying. This is the last thing these people see. It still gives me chills. It's really good. So Jane slices her own throat open. I don't feel sorry for Jane. So Jane's a bitch. To hell with her. So then Scully and Jack are Scully calls Mulder, and Mulder's like, "Hey," and she's like, "Mulder, what do you know about like evil dolls?" And she starts listing off all of this occult stuff. And to all the people who say, Scully just immediately dismisses Mulder's theories and immediately like poo-poos his theories. I say watch this scene. Scully is listening to every goddamn word Mulder says all of the time, forever and ever and a day. And it's a really cute MSR moment when it's like Mulder has read Scully's thesis on Albert Einstein to the point he's memorized it. Like, that's endearing. Again, like, why couldn't we have this MSR? Why did it have to be this toxic relationship? Like, why couldn't we just have these two idiots in love and they're chasing the paranormal? Like I said in my review of the Goldberg variation, but of course we can't have nice things ever. Like, this is the MSR I love. This is the MSR that inspires me to write MSR fan fiction, is moments like this where it's like they know each other so well, like they can quote to each other what they hold important. Like, that's great. Like, why couldn't the show be that? And then he says, "Look for a little ring on the doll's back," and she hangs up on him, which is great. Toy Story X-Files crossover went. We'll get to that in a second. So Scully's like, "Let's go talk to Lissy Turner." So Melissa Turner spills gasoline in her house, and she's going to light it on fire and kill her and her daughter, burn them up, which is, yeah, I watched this when I was 38, and a lot like the episode Home, where all I remembered was Mulder and Scully proposing to each other. I just blocked out all of the incest and murders. It's like this. I think my little 13-year-old brain just blocked all of this out, and I was like, oh, haha, evil doll, and Mulder flirts with Scully, so cute. So, they a couple of things. So, Melissa Turner will go to prison for the rest of her life. There's no doubt about it. For attempted murder and arson. She'll go to prison for a good chunk of her life, if not for the rest of her life. Her child will be taken away from her, placed into the overtaxed foster care system, and be more traumatized than she already is. And, like, it's easy to blame Melissa Turner. But why? Why weren't these people who claim to be in this tight-knit, caring community, why didn't any one of them step up and say, like, hey, we're going to give this woman the support system she needs to raise this child and to be productive, instead of just blaming her for all of the bad things that happen and then forcing her into this where she sees no other way out. And again, like, it is a commentary, or this was written by white men, so there you go. This is how I see it, is women who are forced into just horrendous situations. And you hear a lot of that discussion now with the quote pro-life movement, which is absolutely not pro-life. It's pro-forced birth. Like, women are blamed for, like, having unwanted pregnancies, when I'm like, well, why didn't our society, like, give them good access to birth control? And then women who keep their babies, like, they're blamed for being single moms. And, like, okay, or, like, why don't you give them the resources to raise this child? Why don't you hold their deadbeat dads accountable? You know? And I believe this is the same thing with Lissy Turner. Like, she sees no other out. Her child is murdering people, and she's like, I have to do something. People could have been reaching out years before now to help her. And when I first rewatched this, I wanted to blame Scully, of like, she could have been the one to make sure they were safe. But then I thought, how? Scully is an outsider here, and she doesn't know the ins and outs of this town. Like, she's on vacation. She's not even on a case. And she's doing the best she can. Like, why wasn't Jack reaching out to Lissy Turner? Like, why wasn't Jane reaching out? Why wasn't Buddy reaching out? All Buddy wanted was to, like, get in Lissy's pants. What a fucker that guy is, right? And, like, it's terrible. And I see it that way. So Lissy's gonna light the house on fire, and the doll goes fucking nuts. The doll's like, don't play with matches. The match goes out. She says, don't play with knives. Lizzie, like, gets a knife out. She's like, let's play with the hammer. And she gets the hammer out. And Lizzie starts hitting herself in the head with the Claudin. Again, nightmare fuel. I had nightmares for several months after watching this. So, Lizzie, Scully and Jack break down the door. Scully goes to Polly. She's like, give me the doll, Polly. And Polly's like, no. Finally, Polly lets it go. And Scully chunks it in a microwave. A couple things. Scully does it without hesitation, okay, which means she has done this before. This is an instinctive move on Scully's behalf, because Scully has chucked dolls in the microwave before. Scully was a tomboy. She grew up with her brothers out in the woods, and she didn't have dolls, I'm pretty sure. But you know who did have dolls? Her older sister, Melissa. Scully was microwaving Melissa's dolls. She was doing that. I'm writing a fan fiction now, and Maggie Scully is, like, reminiscing about the time Dana microwaved Melissa's dolls, which is absolutely what happened. And Scully looks so pleased with herself when she does it. She's like, yeah, I got that fucker. No more evil doll for this town. So Scully's staring into the flames, and So, we talked about how Mulder cannot function without Scully, which has been proven, and how she can function without him. You see, as the show goes on, Scully coming into the role of the true believer. You see it starkly in season 8. That's what I talked about last episode in Via Negativa. But you see hints of it before that. Episodes like Revelations, this episode, Chinga. Scully is coming into the role of the true believer. But I will go a step further and say she has always been a true believer. I believe her coming into these fields of the FBI and being a doctor, being a scientist, being a pathologist, like being a woman, she could not indulge herself in those things the way Mulder could, because Mulder has that good old privilege. Scully couldn't, or she would not be taken seriously in these two fields. So she had to fall back on reason and logic. But it's always been there. I mean, the thesis she wrote about reimagining Albert Einstein's theories and the things she experienced when she was a child, when she was a little girl, the things she experienced when she was a young woman. Like, she's always been a true believer because these supernatural things come from within her. She has those precognitive powers. And she comes from a long line of women with precognitive powers. Maggie, Melissa, they have these intuitive powers. Again, the show never explores it. Yeah, let's talk about CSM some more. Fuck me. I don't want to hear about that fucker. Like, we'll talk about that piece of shit when we get to Musings of a Cigarette Smoking Man. Possibly one of the worst episodes in the series. I believe it's always been in Scully, and that is her default. That is her default, to believe in something beyond the realms of possibility, and she suppressed that. And you see it very clearly coming out here, and especially as the show goes on. So then the doll's dead, and I guess they get it out of the microwave and throw it in the ocean. They should have put it in a safe and buried it. So this idiot that gets it out in another lobster trap looks at this burned evil doll who opens its eyes and says, "Let's have fun." And he's like, "Oh, let me give this to my kid." Don't fucking do that, you idiot. Who are these people? So then you see Scully. She goes back to FBI headquarters. Mulder's there. And I love how he's sharpening pencils. Very phallic and sexually frustrated thing to do there, Mulder. And Scully's like, "Hey, did you get a lot of work done?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no one was like meddling me or questioning me." And you see a pencil fall, and he's been sticking pencils up in the ceiling. And you'll see that callback in Mulder and Scully Meet the Weremonster, which is the one of 3 good episodes in the revival, I think. That's all we got. And that's Chinga. So, definitely my favorite episode in season 5. One of my favorite episodes, and I believe the perfect X-Files episode for Halloween. Have a happy Halloween. If you know of an X-Files episode that you think is underrated, you want me to talk about. If you have an X-Files episode you think is overrated, you want me to talk about, and you tell me the reasons why you think it is, give me a shout out. I am on Twitter at raccoons_dead. I am at Tumblr at justawfulxmenart. You can find my X-Files fan art there, and lots of other fan art, Warrior Cats and Keisha Ra fan art and X-Men fan art. And I am at DeviantArt at Dead Raccoons. And of course, leave me a comment here. Subscribe. I love making these videos, but they take a lot of time. If you want to sponsor me, I will talk about your product. I will talk about your goat soap, whatever the hell you want. Have a great Halloween. Happy harvest. I love you. Mwah.